My guest today is Martha Burke. Martha Burke is the author of this incredible book, which I recommend everyone run out and get. It's called Your Money and Your Life: The High Stakes for Women Voters in '08 and Beyond. Martha is also the money editor at Miss Magazine, and she was just recently appointed the New Mexico, tell me, what is it that you were appointed?
Senior Policy Advisor to Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico.
Congratulations. Congratulations on the book and your appointment.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your book a little bit. Tell me, what motivated you to write this book, Martha?
Well, I realized that young voters, women and men alike, say take a 24-year-old voter, has never known anything but the Bush administration. They might believe that what is happening to women and men, but the book is about what's at stake for women. They might believe that's normal. They might believe that our spending all this money on the war to the detriment of other programs that we used to have and could have again is normal. Women are very busy these days. They don't have time to read lots of policy articles and delve into all the op-eds every Sunday. So I wrote a book that would be very accessible. They could pick it up, read it 10 minutes at a time, read something they care about. For example, a woman who cares about child care can pick up the book, read where we are on child care. How do we compare with the rest of the world and what needs to be done? At the other end of the scale, suppose it's an older woman. She wants to know what's going on with Social Security. Am I going to lose my retirement? And what are the politicians saying? And this is where I think the book really does a service. At the end of every chapter, I give folks questions to ask your candidates or ask your elected officials, because they too often try to flim-flam us with just empty talk or fake rhetoric, and we need answers.
Right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about a controversy that's come up with respect to cuts in family planning since the Bush administration came into office. And to me, that is an incredible example of penny wise and pound foolish. Family planning, and in particular, the kinds of people that they have appointed to head up family planning. You know, along with the fact that they've been funding abstinence-only programs, which provide for pamphlets that say, you know, the only sex you should have is sex inside of a marriage. And I think that's all well and fine, but it's not realistic. And I see state after state opting out of receiving any federal funding because of the strings the Bush administration tied to that kind of funding. So tell me a little bit about what happened to family planning over the last few years and the funding, and what kind of a drag ultimately that ends up happening when, particularly in New Mexico, the last statistics that we saw were that 60% of all the babies born in New Mexico were born to teen mothers, and 50% of those mothers were unmarried.
Well, it is a heck of a problem in New Mexico, and more so around the country, or increasingly, I should say. The Bush administration has greatly ramped up the money, our tax dollars, that are going into abstinence-only education. That means that our kids are taught in school nothing about any birth control method or anything that might keep them from getting a sexually transmitted disease. They are taught that abstinence and sex within marriage is the only thing acceptable. Now, the government has some research done under the Bush administration that shows these programs are not working. And as a matter of fact, our teen pregnancy rate nationwide is up for the first time in 15 years.
Wow.
Yet, they say, oh, well, we don't think there's any connection here. So that is our tax dollars, $176 million a year, going to those programs, and schools that don't agree to teach it that way don't get the money. Now, some schools are opting out, and I'm very glad to say that New Mexico State Department of Education has opted out. They've said our kids need good information, but there are still only 8 or 10 states out of the 50. So most kids in this country are getting that abstinence only. In family planning itself, the Bush administration, for the first time in the history of the program, Medicaid, the program of last resort for poor women, they have put in a copay for family planning. These women are already so poor they cannot afford any kind of medical care or drugs without help, and now there's a copay. So women are going without birth control. The same on college campuses.
Right.
It has skyrocketed due to policy changes. The clinics are no longer getting any help on campuses, so girls that were paying maybe $10 a month before for the pill are now paying $65, $75, even $100 on some campuses, and they can't afford it. So what does that mean? They go without, the pregnancy rate goes up.
Right. Right. So these are some scary things, and this is because so many of our dollars are going to fund wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and potentially Iran if this administration has their way.
That's part of it, but another big part of it is ideology. The Bush administration, many of the people, and you ask about appointments, some of the people in Health and Human Services that are in charge of family planning programs don't believe in birth control.
Right.
And they have said so. So there is an ideology here behind it and a shortage of money because of the wars. And while we're on the subject of spending money on the wars and foreign policy, the first thing the Bush administration did on cutting family planning money was cut overseas family planning in very poor countries, $34 million. Where now women are getting illegal abortions and dying from them because they may already have 5 or 6 kids and birth control is not available and they're desperate.
Right. And it seems to me, as the superpower of the world, one of our primary obligations would be to help assist people worldwide and our own people in managing the population of our world, because with limited resources, how can we continue to grow a population? I love the quote in your book on that said hiring people in the Bush administration in family planning was like hiring somebody at Colonel Sanders hiring somebody that was a vegetarian.
And refused to sell
chicken, right, exactly. So we have a lot of that going on. I mean, we have that with the EPA, we've had that, just time and time again, where either it was lobbyists who have written the regulations and rules to benefit themselves.